What is up? Welcome back to Kevin Savage TV. My name is Kevin Savage, and today we are going to look at my top 5 different ways I personally like to transition songs between like verses and choruses on specifically lo-fi and hip-hop type tracks. All right, so let's hop into Ableton and check it out. All right, so we are in Ableton, and we're going to go ahead and take a look at my favorite top 5 ways of transitioning between pieces of a track. We've got the Stutter Effect, Tape Stop Effect, Beat Effect, Cutout, and Filter. These are all really basic transitional effects that you could do on a lot of different tracks: pop, hip-hop, lo-fi. I tend to use these the most for pop or for hip-hop and lo-fi. But they can really be used on all sorts of different tracks, some more than others. The first one I want to take a look at is the Stutter Effect. I use this a lot on the Ghetto Benny album. And basically what this does is I basically chop on the grid on, usually it's like 16th notes or triplet 8th notes. So basically we've got our beat, right? That's the straight notes, and then we got the triplets, right? And those cutaways, especially with this this crash cymbal, which in my opinion is super important, really kind of build tension. To me, music is all about tension. So, you know, we've got, this is without the crash. The crash is important, right? Now, what's cool with that is you don't have to do it all the time. You could do it a couple of times without a crash to kind of build up, and then to really slam it in with the crash. Now, I've done a little bit of extra modification on this. I actually took this kick transient and layered it on each one of these, because otherwise it would have sounded like this. Let me just clear these guys out. Boom, 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 and it would have sounded like this. Which sometimes works. Let's put the crash in there so you hear it. Right, it can work, but this, I think, is much stronger. Right, so that's why I think the crash is important, really kind of resampling little pieces to like layer them out to really make those chops cut through, in my opinion, is really important. This is a super basic transition and allows for kind of this like stutter effect. Now keep in mind, if you use reverb on your melody, you're still going to hear that reverb. So you may have to do this sort of like automation on the master, at least in Ableton. You could basically hop in here and adjust the speaker on, so turn the speaker on and off. That'll make sure that the reverb and all that other sound is also being ducked. Now, if you're trying to balance stuff a little bit, you may have to manually chop this up and then go through and manually stick those that automation on-offs on your sends. So just something to keep in mind if you notice it's not clean, but it really depends on whether or not you're trying to get a clean stutter or a stutter that is more kind of lazy. So that is the Stutter Effect. Next up, we've got our tape stop. Now, I found this tape stop using Kilohearts, the Kilohearts tape effect, or tape stop. Yeah, it's called Kilohearts. It's tape stop by Kilohearts, is really useful. So I think there's some other ones out there, some by Waves. You could probably find similar ones with like by Effectrix and stuff like that. But this is what the tape stop effect sounds like when it's put on the melody and the drums. Yeah, so there you go. Oh, and that was turned off. So if we hear it fully with it on, It's turned off on the drums. Right? It kind of like just stops, which allows you to like kind of change and then come back in. And so that's why it's a really cool, especially for like a groovy kind of beat. Now I put it on the melody and the drums. I like Tape Stop by Kilohertz because you can adjust the stop and start time, because maybe you want it to go down, but then you want it to kind of immediately pop back up. Whereas some of the other ones I haven't really noticed it have the same sort of control. Now, another way that you could do this, because sometimes the drums can sound a little weird being tape stopped, but you can also do this with by like clearing out some of the let me just check this really quickly. Yeah, there we go. By clearing out kind of where it cuts out down here, because you're basically getting the wind down somewhere like right around here. So as you can see, it's not over the drums. And of course, you can fine tune it exactly how long you want it to take. But by clearing out some of the drums right here, that's also useful. You heard it the initial time that I played through this, but I'm gonna play it again. Right. I in favor of everything kind of being silent for like one bar, or like one beat within a bar, just to make sure that it kind of gives that room to breathe before you come in with the hook or the verse again. So that's the tape stop effect. Super easy, basic transition. You'll hear it on all sorts of songs. We've got beat repeat, which very similar to Stutter, did require some modifications, but this is basically what beat repeat sounds like, and I'll kind of talk it through a little bit. You'll see there's some fades here. All right, so a little more going on here, but one thing to note is I try to find good transients to stutter on. So like this right here. Would be good, or maybe right that bang, 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 right? Like those things, right? If I were to redo this, I could do, right? Right, like that's kind of what's going on here. So, and then also, if we were to roll this out, you see, there's these other pieces. I like to grab the kick and layer that, so it's like stuttering this whole piece, not just stuttering the melody. You could stutter just the melody. But if you really want that emphasis, it's good to have that transient. Right? It's good to have those kicks in there. And then I like to fade it so it kind of is a little sharper. And then a little more complicated here. We stutter just this hi-hat once. Then we let the kick come through here. And then we take this kick and then basically, or we take the end of this transient, or this bass sound. This bigger sound right here, and then we basically we stutter, doot doot. So we got this kick, boom boom, right there, and then breakaway, and that gives a little bit of room for breath, right? But we fade this so it's a little sharper, and then the kick there allows it to punch. And then I went ahead and thought that it would sound really cool to kind of have the snare and then have 2 snare hits. And this is an interesting little piece of nugget that it's a little bonus, right? This is a reverse kick. So I take the kick and then I reverse it and sharpen it up. And this allows for this kind of this whoosh sound. And it's very quick, but if we eliminate it, it sounds different. right? And that's important, right? That like sound right in there really helps kind of tie the stutters together. And then there's no stutters on the rest of this. I just put the stutter right there. So keep in mind too, some of these different transition effects are very contingent upon the type of song you're doing. You can try them on any track, but some are going to work better on some tracks and others are going to work better on other tracks. The next one is the cutout. This is probably the most common one you'll hear. This is used a lot on intros. This is used a lot when you want a rapper or an artist to kind of be able to say something really quick in between two pieces. It clears all of this space. As you see too, I put the reverse kick there again. Now, the one important thing that I found is you want to make sure that you're ending on a snare. I found that if you don't end on a snare, or you don't end on some sort of transient sound here, a percussive element here, it's going to sound weird. So let's play this through and you can hear what it sounds like. And so you would have someone go da 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 boom, and so you've got this little space right here. Or if you want to fill like a do 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 doom do da 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 doom, that sort of space there allows for it. Now I like what if you were to remove the reason why I said like this snare transient's important is because check it out without it. It might work. I just think it sounds like garbage. So I think the snare is important. And then of course the reverse without it sounds boring in my opinion. So having that reverse kick, especially in some of those gaps right there, or having some sort of sound that kind of like sucks you in, super useful. So that's the cutout. It is probably the most basic and most common way of transitioning. Used tons of times in introductions. Sometimes I like to have a reverb on the melody, which will kind of play out and then boom, smash in with the next section. A lot of the times, stuff like this, there'll be no drums here, right? It'll just be... So if this was like my intro... You'll hear that a lot on an intro, although for something like that, there would have been a ton of reverb on there, probably, and some reverb tails playing here. But that is the cutout, and then the filter one is just this is mostly for lo-fi in my opinion. I got this idea from like listening to Patsu. He does this pretty frequently on the track they did with XXX. Check it out. This is the beat. It's a little pensive right here. Yeah. I love that filter effect. It's just like a bandpass filter that I have going on here. You could do it as just like a high pass, but it's a bandpass. I think this makes the most sense for a sound like this. It kind of cuts the lows, cuts some of the highs, makes it muted, kind of builds that tension. Sometimes it's nice to cut away the percussion a little bit, right? Maybe you put some delay on here right at the end, so it kind of comes back in. Really, it comes down to you figuring out what works best. Sometimes I'll end that on like a snare, or there might be some sort of like break. There might be another little break right here, so it goes. It really just depends on the track. And kind of what makes most sense for you. These are the most basic transitions that I can think of, but these are my top transitions that I would use. I would recommend listening to a bunch of beats out there, which is what we've done when we were working on the Ghetto Benny album, and try to find what unique tricks are, producers are using with their artists. I recommend maybe pulling the beat into Ableton and kind of zooming in on just like pieces of the track, so that way you can really kind of try to explore what the producer of Chris Brown or The Future or Migos or whatever is doing with their artists. You'll probably be surprised at how simple the transitions they use are. It'll almost sound like weird and boring, but it works. It's sometimes simple is the best. But really explore, really actively listen. If you're curious what active listening is, I've got a whole video on it. So yeah, that's really kind of the best way that you're going to grow is to just keep studying other artists and try to figure out what other people are doing and then make it your own. So I hope this helped, and let me know what you think in the comments, and we'll see you in the next video. Peace.